single time you have these actual serious journalists who grill the State Department on their unhinged foreign policy, it reveals that the Biden administration is everything they tell you Trump administration is and was. Incompetent fools who can't even begin to justify their policies. So I want to play this video. Feel free to interrupt anytime, John, but it's not too long. I want to play this and feel free to give your reaction anytime. I think this is very telling. And you see this all the time where the Biden administration just straight out can't defend their policies. So this is him being asked about Rafah.
To Matt's point, the president of the United States of America went out and told the entire world, Israel's conduct is over the top. Israel's conduct is over the top. So if it's over the top, what are you willing to do to make it go under the top?
We are going to engage with them on specific areas where we expect to see improvement.
What kind of improvement? I mean, we saw yesterday that they killed 120 people, maybe a lot more. We don't know how many injured and so on, or how many among the injured will end up dying and all these things. And you're saying that this is, just what you said. You said that we've seen them bomb Rafah, all throughout. Does that make it okay? Does that make it okay when everybody, including the Secretary of State, including the President of the United States of America, including many leaders in this country, have said, you should not attack Rafah, period, or you can attack it by air? Is that it?
We have always said that they can attack legitimate military targets, and we want to see them take every step that they can to minimize civilian casualties. As I just said, we have seen civilian casualties come down,
right.
But
that's a lie. But I'll let it continue. It's hard to get through, but I'll let it continue.
As you and I have discussed many times in this room, Saeed, they face a very difficult situation in that Hamas continues to hide itself among the civilian population.
Not an excuse.
This was a war.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt it, but that's not an excuse. So, John, do you want to chime in?
No. Look, this is the other dangerous thing about this whole Hamas thing. We don't even refer to Hamas necessarily. We refer to the Palestinian resistance.
Yeah.
Hamas, of course, is a major part of that. But what the Israeli fascists are really concerned with is to try to do away with any Palestinian resistance. That resistance they know resides in the people themselves. So there's no hiding among the people. The resistance is, in fact, the people. That's why the more honest elements of the Israeli fascist class, they say that there's no innocence in Gaza, because they understand that these are an oppressed people, an occupied people who are in resistance. So the only way you deal away with the Palestinian resistance is when you commit complete genocide against the Palestinian people.
Absolutely. Perfectly said. I'll leave it there. I'll let the video play because you said it perfectly. I'll let the video continue.
As you and I have discussed many times in this room, Saeed, they face a very difficult situation in that Hamas continues to hide itself among the civilian population.
I'm going to say what I was about to say earlier. You guys see how they're redefining war? They're trying to the point, even if what they're saying is true, that's irrelevant. That does not give you right to kill civilians. When has that ever given you the right? And this is what everyone in both parts of the duopoly repeat. Hamas hides itself among the most densely populated area in the planet Earth. So we are allowed to bomb children because Hamas is near them? When has this ever fly? Except when white people want to bomb brown people.
But it doesn't fly. It doesn't fly because it's definitely illegal. The genocide courts make it quite obvious that it is in fact illegal. And it's more horrendous when you're talking about an occupied population. This is not a conflict. This is basically a police action on the part of the occupier. And you have the people who are being slaughtered attempting to defend themselves. That's the terms of this so-called war.
Yes, sir. Once again, the quote-unquote black radicals are the only people who can quote international law, apparently. The Palestinians had the right to resist their criminal occupiers. Israel does not have the right to self-defense as an occupying violent colonial force. That is not me speaking. That is genocide lawyers. The people that, I forgot his name, I apologize, but the person who defined genocide in the UN said they are guilty of this. But I'll let it continue. Man, this is a hard clip to get through. But feel free to interrupt anytime, John.
Room. Saeed, they face a very difficult situation in that Hamas continues to hide itself among the civilian population. If this was a war being fought on a battlefield where Hamas would come out and fight, it would be a much different scenario. Unfortunately, it is not. So Israel.
Sorry, guys. I'm fucking sorry. But Hamas is kicking the shit out of IDF. You guys want to know who's the one who's hiding? The IDF, who hides in fucking tanks. They snipe children from afar. The IDF is the most cowardly army of all time. Hamas is out there fighting them. Israel relies on United States weapons and bombing them because they can't engage on the ground. And whenever they do, they get their ass handed to them. But I'm sorry, guys, but I cannot let that stand. That's such a fucking bullshit thing to say.
War being fought on a battlefield where Hamas would come out and fight, it would be a much different scenario. Unfortunately, it is not. So Israel faces a very difficult situation. Doesn't lessen their need to do more, and that's why we continue to engage with them on this question.
But the fact is that you do have a magic wand. You have a huge, big magic wand, and that magic wand.
I'm glad you think it's a magic wand.
It is a magic wand. It is a magic wand.
He said, "I'm glad he thinks it's a magic wand," as if United States funding for Israel and their like full-fledged support. He's pretending that's not a negotiation tool. It's unbelievable, but let's continue.
But it's real. It's substantive. But it is a wand. It's a wand. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars that are approved to make this war keep on going. While, in fact, we have seen reports from the United Nations that telling you are a shake away, Matt, from starvation in Gaza. Nothing is going into Rafah. No aid. None of this is going on. I mean, there are so many things that are going on at the same time that the United States can, in fact, use its magic.
I think there's one more video if I remember right. Let's see. I think there's one more.
So
this one a little bit short. Anything you want to add, John, before we show the next video? Or
it's important. It's important to remind the listeners that the crimes being committed in Gaza are not just the direct military assaults, but the fact that the Israelis have denied food, water, fuel to the people of Gaza. These are all crimes against humanity. These are all war crimes. So in addition to the overall genocide, these particular kinds of actions also amount to war crimes. There's no way, unless the entire international system collapses, that Israeli and U.S. officials should escape prosecution from these crimes. If these people are not prosecuted, then what we will have, in fact, will be an international Hosbian state of nature. There will be no objective law. It would be just the rule of power, and that, in some ways, is what we already have. But people are still trying to utilize, to the extent that they can, the niceties, if you will, of international law. But you can't do that when you blatantly violate it, when you blatantly engage in criminal activity. And this is another example of what we're talking about, that you can't go back and repair this once you allow this to unfold in the way that it's unfolding. You can't go back and utilize and pretend that you are protecting international law and human rights when you have engaged in these kind of blatant violations.
Let's watch this clip. Feel free to interrupt anytime. I promise I'll try to do better in this clip, guys. That last clip was infuriating, bro. But I'll let this clip play. Feel free to interrupt anytime you want, John.
We have used a number of levers at our disposal, and that is why humanitarian assistance is going into Rafah. In fact, your contention is not true. There were nearly 200 trucks that are going into Gaza. There are nearly 200 trucks of humanitarian assistance that went into Gaza yesterday. If we want to go back to the beginning, it is because of the intervention of the United States that humanitarian assistance is going in. We continue to call for more. When the secretary was there last week, he raised directly with the prime minister that we want to see Erez crossing open so that we can continue to do more. And it is that repeated, sustained engagement that we have shown over time has delivered results, and it's why we'll continue to stay engaged.
Do you expect that Director Burns is meeting tomorrow or scheduled meeting tomorrow in Cairo will produce anything? What is the feeling in this building on the ongoing discussions?
So first of all, I'm going to look around and remind everyone that I'm the spokesperson for the State
Yes,
Department,
absolutely.
not any other agency. So I'm not going to speak to the travel of
Well, you're the highest
members
government spokesman.
members of other agencies in the government. I will say generally, as it relates to engagement over the release of hostages. You heard the secretary speak to this and say that we think progress can be made. There were a number of really untenable items in the proposal that came back from Hamas, but we do believe that a deal is possible, and we're going to continue to pursue it from this building as well as from others, because we think the benefits of a pause and a deal for hostages are tremendous, not just obviously for the hostages who would be released, but also for the humanitarian effort in Gaza and for our ability to begin to pursue a real and lasting, sustainable resolution of this conflict.
Man, that was hard to get through. If you guys couldn't tell, I was in shambles listening to that, boiling with rage inside. Ajamu, what's your initial take on this?
This is on bullshit. It's on propaganda, and it's insulting propaganda. As we all know, the U.S. can transform the humanitarian situation overnight. They do have, as the reporter referred to, a magic wand, and that magic wand is the leverage it has over Fort Israel. That when they decide that the political situation is such where it's untenable to continue with this slaughter in this way, they will change it. Now they're getting close to that, Nick, I think, because I think that they understand that because of the general chaos now created in West Asia, or the so-called Middle East, with the uptick of attacks in Syria, in Iraq, with the continued clashes taking place on the Lebanese-Israeli border, the Hutus who have basically shut down for those ships heading to Israel, the Red Sea, if you will, and the possibility that Israel still could utilize or use this conflict to try to launch a direct attack on Iran. The situation is getting completely out of hand, is undermining their longer term interests. One of the brilliant things that happened from the point of view of the bourgeoisie under Trump was the Abraham Accords that were normalizing relations in West Asia, so-called Middle East, that many of the bourgeoisie in Israel were salivating because they saw an opportunity to expand their influence, to make more money. Now, of course, the Palestinians were going to be thrown under the bus, and they were. But what was in place was a situation where the monarchs and the bourgeois, Arab, and Muslim leaders were basically in cahoots with the Israelis, so everybody can make money. All of that now has been upended, and so with the Moody agency just downgrading the credit worthiness of Israel yesterday, with the Israeli economy and facing the difficulties it's facing. The international bourgeoisie is saying, you know what, we may need to recalibrate. We may need to bring about some change that will stabilize the situation, because the policies of Netanyahu is beginning to really cost us dearly in terms of our longer term interests.
Yeah, well said. And